It's Monday, the 22nd of November. Christmas parade horror. At least 5 people are dead, more than 40 injured, as an SUV drives at high speed into crowds, including children.
I run to the window and it was just absolute chaos, people screaming.
Police reveal they fired at the suspect to try to stop the vehicle. They're now in custody. We'll have the latest throughout the programme. Sky News visits IS bride Shamima Begum in a prison camp. She tells us she wants a chance to face a UK court.
What about the accusations that have been levelled at you about your activity with Islamic State?
They're all completely false and have no basis to them, and I'm willing to fight them in a court of law, but I'm not being given the chance.
COVID tensions across Europe with fresh protests in Belgium as Austria returns to full lockdown. Tory MPs urged to rebel on social care proposals amid anger that the least well-off may be left worse off. Southend prepares to pay its respects to the late Sir David Amess in a constituency memorial as the Prime Minister pays tribute.
He showed what you can achieve as an MP to change the lives of people up and down the country, and he will be much, much missed.
I'm here at Old Trafford, where the search is underway for a new manager. And as the rumour mill goes into overdrive, it seems that Real Madrid legend Zinedine Zidane is not interested in coming to Manchester.
Good morning. We begin with the breaking news from overnight. An attack on a Christmas parade in Wisconsin. At least 5 people have been killed and 40 injured after an SUV drove at high speed into crowds of people in the street, including dancing children. Police have revealed they fired at the vehicle to try to stop it. They have a suspect in custody. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner reports.
For some in Waukesha, it was a near miss, a brush with death. This young girl dressed in pink is safe, but only by inches. Many were not so fortunate. This is the moment families watching the Christmas parade realise something is horrifically wrong. A red SUV speeds past a marching band. Off camera, it ploughs indiscriminately into other performers, mowing them down from behind. School children and dancing grannies stood no chance. Police say there are fatalities and many parade goers were injured.
It was just absolute chaos, people screaming, and I immediately ran downstairs outside of my apartment and I could see kids just laying on the street, people putting blankets over them, trying to attend to them, kids screaming on the sidewalks and not really knowing what happened.
The car had cleared a police cordon. Officers shot at the driver, attempting to stop the carnage.
Today we experienced a horrible, senseless tragedy. I walked in the parade at the beginning. I saw all the happy children sitting on the curb. I saw all the happy parents behind their children. I can still see the smiling faces. A parade is a celebration for our community. Today, our community faced horror and tragedy in what should have been a community celebration.
We're no longer looking for a suspect vehicle. We do have a person of interest in custody at the moment, but this is still a very fluid investigation. I was present at this tragic event and saw firsthand the resiliency of the community coming together.
Schools across Waukesha are closed today. This city of 75,000 is coming to terms with the death and destruction visited upon it. Questions now turn to who this is at the wheel and why they turned a joyous celebration into a nightmare. Martha Kellner, Sky News.
Coming up in just a moment or two, we'll be speaking to the Government Minister joining us this morning. Want to ask him, Mr Scully, of course, obviously a regular on the programme, want to ask him, amongst other things, about Shamima Begum. She's told Sky News that she fears for her safety and wants to face a court in the UK, challenging officials to visit and question her inside Syria if they still believe she's a threat. She was just 15 years old when she travelled to Syria. She claims it was after months of grooming when she was at a vulnerable point in her life. She's now 22 and she's been speaking exclusively to our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle.
I feel like the only crime I committed was coming here, so I would be willing to go to prison for that, but like for the accusations made against me, I'm just gonna have to fight against them and see what happens. Whether I win or lose, I will just have to sit a sentence at some point in my life. Yeah. I don't think I can reassure them. I think only the government can reassure them, and the only way for the government to reassure them is if they come to see me, or if they take me back and, you know, interrogate me for however long they want to interrogate me. You know, they have people for this, to like detect liars from the truth tellers. You know, it's not a hard job to see who's lying and who's not lying, and who's consistent and who's not consistent.
As I said, Paul Scully is with us. Should she have the opportunity to face a British court?
I think the Supreme Court has ruled on the on this matter. What I don't want to do, I mean, it'd be interesting to see the extent of the interview, but in terms of the actual case, what I don't want to do is have it out via broadcast. It needs to be heard. It has been heard at the Supreme Court after the Home Secretary made a really clear ruling.
Yeah, I mean, one wonders. I mean, she says that she was groomed. She says she's 22 now, and she's sorry, but she wants to face justice in a British court. I think it's reasonable to say, before seeing all of the interview, that people should be allowed to repent, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I think what is the reason that I say that the decisions shouldn't be taken, although the interview is interesting, the decisions shouldn't be taken out in public, because the Home Secretary took his decision with intelligence documents, with other documents that I haven't seen, that we haven't seen. So, in order to take that complete decision, it's really important that they have both sides of the story, which they've had, as I say, in making the decision, and at the Supreme Court, which validated the decision of the Home Secretary at the time.
It would be humane to... I mean, she's stateless at the moment. Don't we have a responsibility to at least give her the opportunity to have her case heard in the UK?
Well, I think, as I say, the case itself has been heard. I think she's obviously is getting her voice across through your programme here and through other channels as well. I've seen a number of reports in print journalism as well. So that is coming across. But nonetheless, these are really pivotal decisions, rightly so, because it's about national security. It's about actors that are travelling to other countries to do damage against British interests.
Well, as we were discussing there with the Minister, Shamima Begum has told Sky News she was promised paradise when she joined Islamic State, and it turned out to be, in her words, hell. She was talking exclusively to our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, who joins us now from Syria. Hello to you, Alistair. You spent quite a lot of time with her. Judging from what the Minister was saying, unlikely that she's going to find herself back on British soil anytime soon.
No, the decision to strip her of her British citizenship was taken by the former Home Secretary, Sajid Javid. It has been upheld, if you like, nominally at least, by the current Home Secretary, Priti Patel, and there is no suggestion under the current Conservative government that they will reverse that decision, at least not willingly. Maybe they will have to if the Begum family and their lawyers had a successful court outcome, but the Supreme Court has been challenged on that decision, and they also upheld Sajid Javid's position on it. So Shamima Begum, as it stands at the moment, is not a British citizen. The British government say that she has dual Bangladeshi heritage, but she has never visited Bangladesh itself, and the Bangladeshi government say nothing to do with us. And so therefore you've got a situation where she's in a prison camp in Kurdish-controlled northern Syria, and the Kurds who guard her and other foreign fighters are saying, look, you know, we've got to do something about it, because we simply don't have the space, we don't have the money, and we don't have the capability to hold these former ISIS brides and ISIS fighters indefinitely. So at some point it will come to a crunch. But yeah, we spent quite a long time with her, actually, and I think it probably is one of the more informal interviews that she's done. We wandered around the camp. She introduced me to her friends and showed me where she lived at the moment. And I asked her what happened back in 2015 when, as a 15-year-old, she left East London with two other school friends, and how it was that they became to find themselves on that journey to Syria.
I just slowly started becoming practicing, you know, and it opened a doorway to like new people and a new life that I thought I wanted and I thought I could fit into, you know, and I didn't fit into my community or my family, so I felt like I was going somewhere where I could, you know, be accepted more for who I was. I didn't hate Britain, I just hated my life in Britain.
Why?
because I felt very constricted and I felt like I couldn't live the life that I wanted in the UK of a British woman. I just wanted freedom of choice in a way, to make my own decisions, not have to like ask my parents' permission first or think about my community's, you know, view of what I'm doing. I just wanted to do what I wanted, you know.
The case of Shamima Begum completely divides British opinion. There'll be those who have watched what she's just had to say there and think she's got everything that's come to her, good riddance, she should never be allowed back in the United Kingdom. And all those that probably agree with what Shamima Begum has to say and feel that she, at the very least, should be allowed to come back to the UK, as, you know, I should point out, other people in her situation have done, both British and European. And she should be allowed to face the course of law and have her day in court, put her side of the story across, have that challenged by the UK establishment. But, as I said, she is where she is at the moment, and I think she probably, in her quieter moments, albeit not admitting it on camera, recognises that her options are running out and perhaps her time is running out to return to the UK.
OK, Alistair, thanks very much indeed. And if you want to see an extended version of Alistair's report, you can do that online and on our social media. We, of course, will be speaking to him again in the next hour. Meantime, looking quickly at these, the morning's papers for you. The Eye reports ministers are pushing for COVID boosters to be offered to all over 18s in a bid to halt the virus from spreading. The Express has the same story, saying COVID booster jabs will save Christmas. The Telegraph leads with violence erupting after a new wave of coronavirus cases spread at lightning speed in Europe. The Guardian leads on growing concerns of a government backbench rebellion over controversial plans to scale back the cap on social care. Let's take you to Austria now, which woke up this morning in national lockdown. And this is the scene in Vienna this morning, deserted, given people can leave their homes for a limited number of reasons, such as going to work or buying essential food. That's in stark contrast to these scenes just 24 hours ago, where people desperately tried to squeeze in a last-minute trip to the city's Christmas market before it closed for business. And these are some of the most recent shots from Brussels, where riot police used water cannon on those who came out to protest over the weekend. Joining us now is the Shadow Health Secretary at Labour's Jonathan Ashworth. Hello to you, Mr. Ashworth. Thanks for joining us. We've seen what's happening across Europe. How concerned are you about what might happen in the UK?
Well, I definitely don't want to see another one of Boris Johnson's lockdowns imposed upon us, especially not over Christmas. The way to avoid that is to fix the vaccination campaign. It has stalled. I mean, we are expanding access to boosters. That's a good thing. But if you're in the immunocompromised community, i.e. you've got a serious long-term health condition, it's been pretty chaotic as to whether you get a third jab or not. So that's what the charities have said. And there's still parts of the country where the second jab rate, like Leicester or Blackburn, still isn't good enough. We need to really drive that up. But of course, you've got to put in place other protections as well. We still don't pay people decent sick pay. We're still not doing enough to deal with the fact that the virus is airborne. We're still breathing in contaminated air. We're not putting in place air filtration systems in public buildings to improve the quality of air. So the ball is in the minister's court, really. They've got to put these protections in place to avoid further restrictions. But I definitely do not want another one of Boris Johnson's lockdowns. They do a huge amount of damage to family life, to community life, to the economy. So it's really worrying when you see what's happening in Austria and parts of Europe.
Credit where it's due, though. They've been doing very well with the rollout when it comes after a shaky start, when it comes to the booster.
The booster is beginning to pick up, but the booster is now only one element of that vaccination programme. You've got children's vaccinations, which are for adolescents, which are still far too low. As I say, you've got the third jabs for people with conditions such as blood cancers and other serious conditions where it's been chaotic, frankly. And that's, as I say, the charities are making those complaints. And there's still parts of the country, like Leicester, like Calderdale, like Burley, like Bolton, where the second dose rates are not as high as they should be. And the reason I mention those particular places is they're the areas that Boris Johnson put into local lockdowns. And the government seems to have given up on their second dose rates. That's simply not good enough. Those areas need more support to really drive up their second dose rates as well.
Voting on social care later on in the House of Commons. We were speaking to the Minister just a few moments ago. I'm sure you caught what he was having to say. Basically, what the government is introducing is much better than what's in place at the moment.
Well, remember, the government have imposed a punishing tax rise on working people across the country to fund this plan. And when you look at the details of it, it's not a care plan, it's a care con, because if you live in a £1 million house, perhaps in the home counties, 90% of your assets will be protected if you need social care. But if you live in a sort of £80,000 terrace house in Hartlepool or Barrow, Mansfield or Wigan, for example, you lose nearly everything. That is not fair. That's not levelling up. It's daylight robbery. So we're saying to Tory MPs, join with us tonight in rejecting this proposal and instead ask the Minister to retreat to the drawing board and come up with something fairer.
This is a scheme. This scheme is better, though, than what's in place at the moment. And even Sir Andrew Dilnot agrees with that.
But remember, everybody is also being asked to pay more tax. And if you're in Hartlepool or Mansfield, Bury, where I'm originally from, or Wigan or Salford, where I was born, or even Leicester, where I now live, you're being asked to pay more tax to fund a system which benefits wealthier homeowners, and you will potentially still lose out. You'll still lose thousands and thousands of pounds, even though you're paying more tax. That's why it's an unfair system. It's why Tory MPs privately have branded it an inheritance tax across the north. So let's reject it, take it off the table, and come up with a fairer alternative.
Haven't those wealthier people paid more tax during the course of their working life?
But at the moment, working people are going to be paying more in national insurance, as well as their council tax going up, as well as their income tax going up, because the personal allowance is being frozen, because Rishi Sunak is one of the biggest tax rising chancellors of recent years. So ordinary people, it's a real struggle at the moment. We've also got inflation going up. So the cost of living, the cost of things in the shops is going up as well. So you're really clobbering working people at the moment. They're really struggling. Their wage packet is being stretched further and further and further. And you're asking them now to fund a system which benefits people with £1 million houses. It's not fair. As I say, it's not levelling up. It's daylight robbery. Let's reject it and let's work on a fairer alternative.
And yet still Boris Johnson and the government seem to have, I know they're a little bit behind in the polls at the moment, but come the next election, what's going to happen? How are you going to get those red wall seats back?
Well, at the next general election, we've got to work hard to convince people to put their trust in Labour, because I think Keir Starmer will be a much better Prime Minister of this country than Boris Johnson. And I think we need a Labour government. But look, you're absolutely right. Lots of people across the North and the Midlands voted Tory for the first time. They put their trust in Boris Johnson in places like Radcliffe and Bury, where I'm from, and across the Wigan area where you're from. But Boris Johnson is squandering that trust. He's betraying that trust because he's gone back on his promises he made about rail last week. He refused to, he's got all this sort of corruption, and he tried to sort of bail his mates out on it. And now he's imposing a tax rise on everybody in order to fund a care system which hugely benefits the very wealthy and the rich. That's not fair. So I think Boris Johnson is squandering the trust, but we've got to build trust in ourselves, and we'll do that by talking about the good jobs we'll deliver, the better wages we'll deliver, the improved health service we'll build, the better schools we'll deliver for people in across the whole of the country, and how we'll make our streets safer by investing in our police force as well.
OK, let's talk about the Home Secretary. Her colleagues, her civil servants, coming out and briefing against her in the weekend papers. Whatever you think of the Home Secretary, that is totally inappropriate behaviour.
Well, I always think you get briefing and sniping, anonymous sniping and briefing all the time in politics, and it's not nice. It shouldn't, it shouldn't happen. It's destabilising. My issue with Priti Patel isn't what anonymous civil servants may or may not be saying in the newspapers, is that Priti Patel is failing on the things that she promised to deliver. I mean, you know, she's failed to deliver the extra resources to keep our communities safer in the way in which we need here in an area like Leicester. She's failing to get a grip of the problems and with the immigration system. She's a very poor Home Secretary, actually, and that's my issue with Priti Patel.
OK, good to talk to you. As always, come and see us in the studio soon. Thank you.
I will do. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Looking at the latest COVID figures, just talking about them there, weren't we? 40,004 new cases of COVID in the last 24 hours. The government says a further 61 people had died within 28 days of testing positive for COVID-19, bringing the UK total, my goodness me, to almost 144,000, 143,927 people have succumbed to COVID. These are the latest vaccine figures. Almost 25,000 first doses received that first dose of the vaccine. The second dose is there at 23,381. However, you can see the total second dose is 46,150,000 thereabouts. And when it comes to the boosters, I can tell you 15 million boosters have now been given out administered in the UK, 400,000, more than 400,000 yesterday. Joining us now is David Nabarro, the Special Envoy on COVID-19, the World Health Organization. It's always great to see you. Thank you for joining us. How concerned are you about the images that we're seeing in Belgium and the Netherlands and Italy and Croatia, people saying enough, don't lock us down anymore?
Oh, I can understand people saying enough, Kay. This virus just goes on, doesn't it? I mean, of course, I'm really very, very anxious about what I'm seeing right across Europe, including now in Western Europe, these very large numbers of cases. But it's also the speed with which they're increasing really is a cause for concern. I'm not surprised because this virus is just not going away. And I'm also not surprised that people are protesting because actually the public in so many countries are really fed up with what's going on. However, me as a public health person, I've got to share with you, Kay, and with your viewers, that we're going to have to go on. We're going to have to go on resisting this virus. And we do it through making it hard for the virus to get from one person to another with face masks and also with avoiding breathing in the air breathed out by others. And by the way, the face masks have got to be well fitting. You know, if we keep that personal protection going, especially in confined spaces, evidence is really strong that this reduces the size of the surges and the peaks. And then the second thing, of course, is to actually make sure that those who are eligible for vaccination are vaccinated and vaccinated promptly, because that also makes a huge difference to the amount of suffering and death. So we've got to keep going, and please, everybody, take it really seriously. This virus has got so many surprises in store for us.
Mandatory vaccines, good idea?
Sorry, I missed that.
Mandatory vaccines, yeah. Are they a good idea?
Oh, I'm glad I asked you to repeat it. Gave me a chance to think about it. You know, I'm one of these people who always hopes that it's possible to approach a problem like this through partnership between people and different authorities, local authorities, national authorities, even global authorities. After all, we're in this together, and people are the only solution that the world has to dealing with this virus. There's no magic bullet or whatever you might call it that's going to come along and help. It's people and people working together. So if it's at all possible to avoid having to require people to be vaccinated, otherwise they get some kind of penalty, I'd really prefer that. If, on the other hand, there's absolute refusal, then I quite understand governments looking at the possibility of mandating. Like many things, I would see this as a last resort.
How do you feel about travel at the moment? Actually, travelling between the UK and Europe has become easier and easier. I know that you've managed to see your grandchildren of late. Should that be tightened up again?
Well, I'm not going to suggest that there needs to be a lot of effort tightening up travel. I think that what we need to do is to try to make it possible for people to move around safely. And there's some really good work underway on that with the airlines at airports and so on. But at the same time, I think that every individual does need to try to reduce the likelihood that they're going to get infected with this virus. So always, when you're making a journey, first of all, look and see if you can get the information, how much virus there is being transmitted in the place you're going to, and also check that you're not going to be taking it inadvertently to another place that's not got it. And secondly, ask yourself, is this really essential? Because especially if there's a high risk with the travel, if there's a lot more virus where you're going to, it just would be so unwise if you then got sick and got ill and then perhaps got serious problems when you didn't really need to do the journey. So my rule for myself is essential travel only, and that can mean essential for emotional well-being as essential for economic or educational purposes.
Where are you as far as long COVID is concerned? My old buddy Piers Morgan, it's ages since he got COVID, and he says he is still poorly, still doesn't have enough energy, he still can't smell anything. How seriously should we take long COVID?
Well, you see, I take everything about this virus seriously. I think it's just a beastly thing, and it's always surprising us. Let's just describe long COVID for a bit. About 1 in 20 people who get COVID may get long symptoms, means they don't just recover back to normal immediately after they've had the illness. And those of you who know someone with long COVID, like you know Piers Morgan, that you know that the person really feels that they're walking around with their head in a blanket. Basically, the brain and the arms and the legs, they're not communicating properly. You feel fuzzy-headed, you get really tired, and perhaps most importantly, it gets better, then it doesn't, it gets worse again, then it gets better again, then it gets worse again. To those of you who are watching who've got long COVID, I want to say to you, I at least, and my colleagues, realise that this is a very serious problem. I mean, that's also why we're asking everybody, don't treat COVID lightly. Don't just assume if you're young, you get it and then you're fine. Be careful about these COVID parties where people are being brought together to get the illness in order to try to perhaps reduce the challenges they face subsequently. Not everybody who gets this illness actually recovers. And as I said, 1 in 20 have a long illness and it takes many months to go away.
Quick thought about Otto before I let you go?
Well, my grandson Otto is now a bit over a year old. Like many children in the UK, he's in this situation where actually there's a lot of COVID moving around in the schools, in the nurseries, and it's quite challenging for the parents because they really do not want to bring COVID into the home, and they certainly don't want COVID going into their workplaces. I just think every time I engage with my beautiful grandson, I'm thinking this is a tough time for parents, especially given the amount of COVID moving around in schools. And I'm going to just continue to say to everybody, I think it's right to continue to treat this virus as though it's a nasty thing. I think it's right to be having your face mask ready and to put it on whenever you go into any kind of crowded space. I think it's right for kids in schools to be wearing masks if they perceive that that's desirable and the parents and school teachers want them to. I think it's right for us to be practicing this physical distancing, not lockdowns, not working from home, but just respecting the fact that we can reduce transmission by maintaining distance. I think that's what we've got to do for the foreseeable future. Everybody.
Always great to talk to you. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
It's always great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. In other news, the Confederation of British Industry meets today in the port of Tyne in the northeast. Top of its agenda, levelling up. Joined now by the organisation's Director General, Tony Danker. Hello to you, Mr Danker. Thank you for joining us. Levelling up. Where are we on levelling up, given what we've just been told about HS2?
Well, where we are actually this morning, you're right, is at the Port of Tyne. It's very fresh, but the CBI is trying its own levelling up. We've got conference going on in 8 different locations around the country and hoping to hear shortly from the Prime Minister. And you're right, levelling up to date has been a very political conversation. I think it's time we talked about economics, because what people in this part of the world want is they want better jobs, better wages and high growth businesses all over the place. That's why businesses are involved in levelling up, and it's why the Prime Minister and myself will be talking about it this morning.
How do you rate the government's attempts at levelling up so far?
Well, look, I think there's been, the Prime Minister's been absolutely right to put it front and centre of the agenda, so I give him a lot of credit for that. You know, the truth is for 5 decades, Kay, no one's really wanted to talk about it. It seemed like there's this inexorable shift of everything southwards to the southeast. And of course, now with things like decarbonisation and with cybersecurity and life sciences, these are new industries that don't have to be based in London. They can be based around the country. So I think full marks for putting it first. There's been a lot of talk about the politics to date. There's been lots of talk about mayors and how our high streets look and so on. What the government hasn't got onto yet is really, look, how do we get people better jobs? How do we get better skills? How do we make places like this as much of a hub of economic activity as the South? Now, that isn't easy for government to do. They can't do it alone, but we've really heard very little from the Prime Minister and the government yet on how to do that, and that's what I hope we'll talk about today.
Yeah, but I bring you back to HS2 and the fact that one way to interconnect the country, it's a very small country, is to have a better rail service.
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right, and let's not sugarcoat this, right? Businesses in this part of the world were disappointed with the news on rail. They've been upset by it. And I think what they're hoping for is that the Prime Minister, the government, the Transport Secretary will get into a second round of conversations on it. And interestingly, it's been less about connectivity to the south and much more, as you imply, about connectivity across the north, about all the cities in the north of England being connected to each other and connected to economic activity. So I hope we haven't heard the last of it. I hope the government will keep on talking.
And where does the CBI stand on halving the air passenger duty, domestic?
Well, look, I think it's clear that the government went about that measure, not for the reasons people think, but they're trying to better connect different airports around the country to Heathrow. If you live in a part of the UK that isn't next to a major airport like Heathrow, it's incredibly inconvenient to have to travel overseas on holiday or travel overseas for business. So I think that was the government's main motivation. But I think we can be in no doubt that actually on all forms of transport, what we need is a massive green revolution. And I hope alongside measures taken so far by the government, they'll push harder on sustainable aviation fuel to make even aviation as green as it can be, because we do need a green transport revolution.
Does that mean that you, as an organisation, you do support the halving of the domestic air passenger duty or not?
Well, I think we supported any incentives to improve connectivity, but I don't think that in the long run what we can be doing is halving duties or halving taxes that don't incentivise green behaviour. So I know exactly why the government did it this time round, and so I welcome the fact that they're trying to better connect regional airports. Let's see if that measure works. If it doesn't work, then we should look at other ways to support regional airports. So let's wait and see if it has the impact it hopes for. But I think doing it without working on sustainable aviation fuel, which is the real prize to decarbonise aviation and air transport, that as a measure in and of itself, I don't think it will do enough good.
Good to talk to you. Busy day ahead for you. We must let you go. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks a lot.
Just want to update you further on the breaking news that we had for you in Wisconsin from overnight, where several people who were taking part in a Christmas parade had been caught up in a tragedy there when a vehicle ploughed into several of the people taking part in that parade. Police have said a person of interest who may have a significant criminal history was being questioned overnight. NBC reporting that the investigators are looking at the possibility that the driver had been involved in an earlier incident involving a knife and was fleeing the scene when the vehicle reached the parade just after 4:30 p.m. local time. An FBI spokesperson saying that the Bureau was aware of the event, but that local authorities will lead the inquiry. Dozens of people have been injured as a direct result of that incident at 4:30 local time. Several people are also known to have died, youngsters and the elderly older people, I should say, alike, taking part in that parade when a vehicle ploughed into them. Police did shoot at the vehicle to try to stop it. They were unsuccessful in that regard. Several people caught up under the wheels of that vehicle. That vehicle has now been discovered and a person of interest has been arrested. The government will bring its social care proposals before MPs today, but there's the threat of a rebellion by Tories. MPs are concerned that with a cap of £86,000 on social care costs, some people will still be forced to sell their homes to pay for social care, something the Prime Minister said before the election would not happen. But Small Business Minister Paul Scully told me the Prime Minister was not lying when he said that.
What we're now in the position to do is to say there is the cap, there is the above which you will not have to pay for social care, which is a fair and balanced approach.
So he was telling lies then in order to win the election?
No, I don't think it was. What he did,
he promised you wouldn't have to sell your house.
He was boiling down a complicated message, which is why, as I say, social care hasn't been dealt with in at least 10 years.
Tomorrow's here. So if he wasn't lying, what was he doing?
Well, that's the question, Kay, and I was talking to some quite senior Conservatives last night, former ministers, former cabinet ministers, and the words over-promising came up quite a bit, that by saying he wanted to fix social care, end the injustice of people selling their homes, Boris Johnson raised expectations about what is a very, very complicated area. What the government want to do, we learned a few months ago, is introduce a cap of £86,000. So currently, people who have the misfortune to spend many years in residential care can potentially have a bottomless pit of costs. That will be capped at £86,000. It turns out now that the burden of that will fall on people with the fewest assets. They won't be able to use any of the state help they get towards that cap, and therefore it highlights some existing problems with this, which is that it's the same cap for everybody regardless of how expensive their house is. And there's a lot of Tories feeling that after the debacle about sleaze and after the problems with the train announcement last week, they don't want this one to also blow up in their faces, and they're asking the government for urgent reassurance about it.
Tomorrow's Take at 9 o'clock.
See you then.
Looking forward to it. Thank you very much. Meantime, a constituency memorial for the MP Sir David Amess will take place later on today. The private service is being held in Southend this afternoon. Sir David died after being stabbed while holding a constituency surgery at Leigh-on-Sea in October. His funeral will take place at Westminster Cathedral tomorrow. The Prime Minister has spoken of his admiration of the late MP.
He was a guy who campaigned about things he really cared for, whether it was animal welfare, people who suffered from endometriosis, which he brought to widespread public attention, or campaigning against fuel poverty. He showed what you can achieve as an MP to change the lives of people up and down the country, and he will be much, much missed.
And we will be speaking to the vicar who's carrying out that service later on. Meantime, questions still being asked about the well-being of Chinese tennis player Peng Shuai. She's now had a 30-minute call with the president of the International Olympic Committee. So is that enough? Asia correspondent Tom Cheshire with us in Beijing. Still some concerns though, Tom?
Yeah, I think those concerns haven't really been dispelled by the call. It was a bizarre weekend here in Beijing after not hearing of anything about Peng Shuai since she made those allegations that she was forced into sex by a very senior Communist Party official. Chinese state media put out videos of her visiting a restaurant, and then on Sunday morning of her taking part in a tennis tournament at the opening ceremony. And then later in the day, the International Olympic Committee put out a statement saying they had spoken to Peng and that she was safe and well, she told them, living at a home in Beijing, but would like to have her privacy respected at this time. No mention there of those allegations of sexual abuse, and that's what has got the WTA, the Women's Tennis Association, concerned about this. They've been pushing for an investigation into those allegations ever since she first made them, and have been pretty unflinching in their support for her. They said that this did not alleviate or address the WTA's concerns. They want a full, fair and transparent investigation without censorship into her allegation of sexual assault. And I think the WTA isn't going to be convinced until they've been able to at least speak to Peng Shuai herself, and that's not what has happened yet. She's only spoken to the IOC according to their statement.
OK, for now, thank you. Manchester United today beginning a global search for a new manager following the sacking of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer yesterday. Joined now by our North of England correspondent Fraser Maud, who is at Old Trafford. Hello to you, Fraser. I thought he was very charming in his goodbye speech.
Was very gracious, wasn't it, as he left the club. Many fans thinking that it was not a moment too soon. In fact, he's been here for just less than 3 years, the longest managerial term since Sir Alex Ferguson left. And I think fans, as much as they love him as a player, love him as a club icon, a lot of them are happy to see him go. And they now want a marquee manager to come and take his place. Zinedine Zidane, formerly of Real Madrid, he left there back in May. He's currently on a sabbatical. There's been rumours that he might be approached, but we're hearing today from sources close to Zinedine Zidane that he is not interested in coming here to Manchester. There are rumours about him potentially going to PSG when he's finished his sabbatical. That's where Maurizio Pochettino is at the moment. There are rumours that Pochettino is on Manchester's wanted list as well. And we're also hearing reports today that the Leicester manager Brendan Rodgers has also been approached by Manchester United. It would cost them £8 million to buy him out of his contract at Leicester. He was asked by a reporter a couple of weeks ago whether he would be interested in the Manchester job, and he said that that reporter was disrespectful for even considering to ask such a question. But we're hearing on the rumour mill today that he has now been approached by Manchester United. There are others on the wish list as well, or on the speculative list as well. Erik ten Hag at Ajax, he's favoured by many Manchester United fans. Ralf Rangnick, who's currently at Lokomotiv Moscow, former Schalke boss. There's talk that he might be able to come here as an interim, but he says he's potentially not interested in coming here as an interim. Laurent Blanc, Luis Enrique, Ronald Koeman, all names that are in the hat for the next job here. One of the biggest jobs in football, and a tough one, to say the very least.